This is Gus Summers, and you're watching In-Show Celebrities. This is the time I take every Monday to talk about some of my favorite films and actors. This week, we have another grand talent of entertainment, Mr. Charles Brown. Commonly known as Charlie Brown, he has not changed a bit since he burst on the scene in the late 1940s up to this day. He has had so many grand adventures. His exploits are documented not only in newspapers and television specials, but also in feature films. There was nothing worse waking up the following morning and realizing that you missed the Charlie Brown special. There was nothing you could do. You could only wait for the following year to see it again. And he and his exploits are so well known, and of course the cast of characters that surround him, that follow him on these exploits. They're well-known characters as well. They make up the gang that's known as Peanuts. They are Schroeder, Peppermint Patty, Linus, Lucy, Franklin, Sally, Marcy, and so many of the other characters. But of course, he has one of the most iconic legends of all entertainment. Of course, it's his faithful friend and ally in all his wonderful adventures, Snoopy. Snoopy goes with him everywhere and is his sidekick, his companion, his compadre, his help in times of need, and of course, his wonderful love and support. Charlie Brown is one of those characters that is always out there fighting the good fight, whether winning the race or, as many times as we have seen, coming up just slightly short, but always giving it his best. Well, first up is his first feature film. So many people had already known him from the newspapers and of course his television specials, but of course feature films came knocking. And this really put a light on who he was and how he endured whenever he faced any type of difficulties, and he just surmounted those and came out a winner from every aspect. The film, A Boy Named Charlie Brown. He plays the title role. He is a young lad who is struggling through his life. Most of the time he feels that life has gotten the better of him. He loses his first baseball game of the season. He sees that, many of life's difficulties are just piling upon him. And he confides in his good friend Linus. And Linus just tells him, you just got to keep at it, Charlie Brown. Don't lose hope. So the following day, him and Linus are at school, and Linus is telling him, you should, do something, Charlie Brown. Participate in the spelling bee. Well, of course, there's always a rival of some kind, an arch nemesis per se. And in this case, and a lot of the times, it's Linus' sister, Lucy Van Pelt. Well, Lucy and her friends, who in my opinion nowadays need a good timeout, a severe timeout for their attitudes. But they ridicule Charlie Brown, saying, you can never win. You will never be able to compete in anything. So Charlie Brown, determined, he tries out for the spelling bee, and he wins the class spelling bee. And from there, he goes on to practice with the help of Linus and Snoopy to enter the school spelling bee. He wins that. And then from there, he gets encouraged to go on to the national spelling bee, which he decides to do. And he puts his whole heart and effort into that. And he stays up late and he studies. And it's going to be on the national stage on television. And his journey from from where he started as just a class spelling bee to the national spelling bee is a wonderful journey, and I'll leave it to you to watch to see what happens. But great movie. You know, it's encouraging all the way. Well, next up is one of my favorites. Actually, all of these are my favorites. It's him out in the wilderness on a grand adventure. The film, Race for Your Life, Charlie Brown. Again, he has the title role. He's going to Camp Remote, a vacation camp with all his friends. Of course, it's the Peanuts gang, and they're all going to go up there and spend a time at camp. Of course, he has his trusty friend, Snoopy, riding his motorcycle, following up there, because, you know, Snoopy is one of those characters that even Charlie Brown admits he doesn't know how he does half the stuff he does. Well, Charlie Brown and the gang get to Camp Remote, and right away they meet their nemesis. It's Camp Number 1. 3 of the worst kids that there could possibly be at camp. And of course they have this mascot, this evil mean cat, Brutus, that's always after Woodstock. Well, what ends up happening at camp is that, you know, they do the normal activities, but then there are camp competition, tent versus tent. They're tent 13, and this other camp, they're tent number 1, and they're always pitted against each other. They're doing tug of war. Camp Number 1 wins. They have other races, a potato sack race. They win. But the way they win is that they always cheat. But Charlie Brown and the gang don't lose hope. And the girls are also there. They have their own tent. And they are, of course, Peppermint Patty, Sally, Lucy, and Marcy. They make up their own tent. And what ends up happening is they are led to the major race or the major event of the camp. And it is a long river journey. This will basically overall decide who is number 1 in this camp. Well, each team has to have their own boat. Charlie Brown and gang, you know, have their own little boat with inner tubes. Marcy and Sally and Lucy and Peppermint Patty have an inflatable boat. And Snoopy, always a team of his own, has one inner tube with a giant sail with his buddy Woodstock. And team number 1, tent number 1, they have state-of-the-art devices on their boat. They have a boat with a motor, with sonar, radar, all sorts of things. Well, they head off, and right away, tent number 1 crashes. They get left behind, while everyone else drifts away with the current. Well, tent number 1, not being the kind to lay down and take it, they get their boat out, then they just burrow down looking for them, and they cause all sorts of havoc for the other teams. They make Snoopy take a detour down this cave. They make the gang go down a branch off the main river, and they're doing demolition. They have them go down this logging mill trail, and all sorts of other trouble. There's a storm. Woodstock gets lost. Snoopy abandons the race and goes looking for his friend. And when the rest of the team realize that something has gone wrong, they go, give up the race at the moment, and go and search for Woodstock and their friend Snoopy. What a wonderful, wonderful story. The true essence of friendship. They look beyond themselves and go and look for their friend. But wonderful story. Like I said, then it ends up being a race to the finish to see who ends up to be number 1 in the camp. Well, next up is another great film. I love this film because Charlie Brown isn't just a national figure, he's an international figure. The film, Bon Voyage, Charlie Brown. Again, he's the title character. In the beginning of the film, you see a young lady in France writing a letter, and it's addressed to Charlie Brown. And she sends it to him. And he gets this letter and he reads it, and he decides that he wants to know more about the person who wrote it and what it's all about. It's a mystery to him. Well, at the same time, his school is part of an exchange program. Two children happen to come from France, and they're going to send, his school is going to send some children back to France. Well, he and Linus get elected to go, along with Peppermint Patty and Marcy. But of course, not to be left out on a grand adventure is Snoopy and his good friend Woodstock. Well, on the flight over there, Charlie Brown reveals this letter, and Marcy reads it and tells her, well, the person's inviting you to stay at their chateau. It's Chateau de Moulvisson, the chateau of the bad neighbor. So no one knows really what it's about. So, but it's near where they're going to stay in France. They go. First they stop in England. First they stop in London. And there's all sorts of exploits there. Snoopy Bean. Snoopy, he goes on and decides to play a game in Wimbledon. So he goes and plays a game there before they make their way off to France. They go to France. And while there, the girls stay with their young foreign exchange student named Pierre. And then the boys head off to the chateau, and Pierre's telling them, no, that's the Chateau of the Bad Labor. That's the Baron's home. It must have been Violet who sent them the letter. He won't have them there long. Well, they end up going to the chateau. No one's there. And what happens is the Baron tells Violet, his little niece, I don't want them there. They got to get out of here. Well, then they go to school. They're trying to figure out who sent them the letter and what ends up happening. But it's a great adventure. You see Charlie Brown in France. You see Snoopy as a World War I ace. And he's there because, of course, he's fought the Red Baron back in his day. But, fantastic movie. There's a mystery involved. You see Charlie Brown in France and how he deals with all the different situations. But great movie. What I love about Charlie Brown is he was a true equal opportunity person. He let Snoopy be involved in all his exploits. He allowed all the girls to play baseball with him on his baseball team. And he is the perpetual average guy that tries and tries and tries again till he succeeds. Fantastic film, fantastic character. Had the opportunity to meet him at a private screening of his new film coming up and asked him any sage advice, and he said, oh yes, you just keep trying, son. Don't give up. Great advice. Love it. Well, that's what I got for you today. This has been Gus Summers, and you're watching In-Show Celebrities. This is the time I take every Monday to talk about some of my favorite films and actors. Of course, be sure to visit us every Thursday from 1 to 2 p.m. at theinshow.com, where I host The In-Show. That's where I bring on celebrities and guests, just talk about whatever it is that's on their mind. Of course, look for us on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, LinkedIn, Pinterest, Flickr, Instagram, all those great social media sites. And as always, ladies and gentlemen, Gus has left the building.